welcome back to another episode of Whiskey Diaries. My name is Martin Lang. We're here at Death and Taxes in Brisbane, and today we're going to be talking about a brand new, spanking new Australian whiskey called Cape Byron. So Cape Byron literally got launched last week. We're talking about the first week of August of 2022. So a little bit of the history of Cape Byron and why does it make it special. Cape Byron distillery got established in 2016 by Jim McEwen and Eddie Brooke. Now, a little bit of the history of the family of the Brookes. They started a farm, a macadamia nut farm in 1988. Well, basically, they bought the land and they wanted to recover it because of all the forestation that was happening in the 80s in Australia. So basically, they bought the land and then they planted thousands of trees, specifically eucalyptus trees and macadamia nut trees, and basically they've been maintaining it since. Now, in 2016, when the distillery got built, they started making a gin only done with Australian native botanicals, obviously juniper as well, but using a lot of botanicals from the farm itself. I've been to the distillery a couple of times and done the tour, and it's absolutely stunning distillery. They won in 2020 a sustainable most sustainable distillery award in the UK for 2020. And they create a spectacular gin. Brooke's gin is actually delicious. And in 2018, they barreled the first whiskey. The interesting thing is that this distillery was done by Jim McEwen and Eddie Brooke. And Jim McEwen, if you don't know who he is basically, he was the master distiller of Bruichladdich. He's the one who created Bruichladdich and Optomo. He's one of the most awarded master distillers in the world, so he knows what he's doing. So it's a great companionship, and it's the first time, I believe, or maybe one of the first times in which a Scottish distillery is directly involved in a distillery in Australia. The whiskey, so everybody had really high hopes for this whiskey. We went to the launch on last Friday, basically on the first week of August. First week of September, and we met Jim McEwen and also Eddie Brooke. We got the bottle signed. The tasting was delicious, and the whiskey is actually incredible. We already reviewed the original cask. The one that we're reviewing today is the Chardonnay cask. So at the moment they have two entries, two main whiskey entries basically. So they have the original, that is American oak, and they have the Chardonnay cask, which is basically ex-Chardonnay wine cask. Obviously, being in Australia and having such a wine industry, it's quite easy for them to source these casks from, I can't remember what winery it was itself. I think it was Barossa Valley, but don't quote me on that one. So again, if you see the bottle, it's actually quite a dark color. For being such a young whiskey, because I think it's 4 or 5 years old. That means that comes from basically Byron. Byron is a very humid and hot climate, subtropical, I believe. So in summers they get really hot summers, and the winters are not really that cold. Maybe 5 degrees, 10 degrees tops. Nothing compared to Scotland anyway, where it snows in winter and stuff. So the maturation of the whiskey is highly accelerated. That doesn't mean that the whiskey is going to be over age or anything like that. It just happens faster. Now, the Chardonnay casks basically impart like more different flavors to the whiskey, especially more similar to what a sherry might do. You get a lot of raisins, baked apples, maple, kind of that sort of aroma. It's bottled at 48% ABV. So the original gets a 47. This is 48. I personally believe that they're actually really good cask strength, really good strength for the whiskey. 46, 47, 48 is just that really shines through, lets the whiskey shine through without having to add too much water to the whiskey. So without further ado, we're just gonna try it. So this is the first release. This is batch number 1, and this is bottle number 53 out of 1500 basically. So there it goes. Wow, that's different. very different to the original cask. As I said in the previous cask, that has a more like fresh eucalyptus smell. This one is definitely, the raisins and the maple is more syrupy on the nose, a lot more sweet, a lot sweeter as well. The 48% ABV doesn't really come through. It's not as strong as you might think. Oh, that's delicious. That's actually really, really delicious. You definitely get those maples aromas, and those raisins is a lot. It's a lot. Tastes a lot older than the original, which is weird because they both spend the same amount of time on the cask, and that goes to show the difference on what a cask can do to a whiskey, right? And what was previously. The sweetness, I'm assuming, comes as well from the residue of the Chardonnay in the casks, the sugars from the wine. So it's actually super delicious. As I mentioned before as well in a previous video, this bottle goes for 145, 150 Australian dollars. It's a 700ml bottle at 48% ABV. It's a really, really good price compared to other Australian whiskies out there. As well, a lot of Australian whiskey bottle their whiskies at 500ml bottles for tax purposes, but still they charge they're a lot more expensive. So this is a really, really affordable, really good Australian whiskey, and I can't wait to see what else they do in the future. And I'm assuming I can say that they're going to win a few awards, because this is really, really good whiskey for me anyway. Personally, we'll see what happens. Anyway, guys, thank you very much for listening. Please let us know if you want any whiskey reviews or anything that you recommend us, and we'll see you next time. Salam Jabba.